So I wanted to share an example of how I use ChatGPT to write computer code. I'm not a developer or a programmer, but I really like to build things, and sometimes I need to be able to write code to help support those. A few months ago, our install manager for our network team came to me and said, hey, I know you like working on projects. I know you have a lot of little hobby things going on. Could you help us? Here's our challenge. We pull a lot of cable through ceilings, and it's relatively straightforward when we're pulling it through drop ceiling, where we can remove tiles and move down the ceiling. But we have places on each of the campuses where we have hard lid, sheetrock ceilings that we can't get into easily. If there's not an access panel that we can climb up in, it's really difficult to pull cable through those. What we'd really like is some sort of little robot, a little radio or remote controlled car that we can drive through the ceiling, and it can pull the little nylon fish tape, and then we can pull cables through behind that. Is that something you can help us build? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And so I talked with him, what are some of your requirements? And he came back with some really cool things. We'd love something that works off our standard drill batteries. So we want it to use Milwaukee batteries. We want something that we can control with our phones or an iPad, but we don't want to have to, pull out like an Xbox controller or something like that to drive through the ceilings, or those kinds of things. He had different requirements like that. And so I sat down and started thinking about it. I started looking at what parts and tools were available on Amazon and kind of like, let me put this thing together. And I wrote this document. It was about 4 pages of specifications. This is what I need it to do. This is how I want it organized. These are all features I'd like to add in the future, but I don't need them right now today. And then I let ChatGPT organize that into a project. And then to actually get started, I told it, now write me a script that can set up all of the directories, create all of the files I'm going to need within those directories, and just create essentially little file stubs throughout there. And so it got the whole project organized for the coding to begin. I then worked on connecting wires and putting everything together. Once we had that done, I then went back to ChatGPT and said, walk me through how to connect this to GitHub. So GitHub is a source code repository. It's a website that you connect your programs to, and then you can save multiple versions. And so if you ever have a problem, it's easy to roll back to a previous version. But it's easy to pull code down. It's easy to push code up. And so it's a really flexible way to track the code for your project. It also integrates really tightly into ChatGPT Codex, which is their programming suite of tools. So I'm new to GitHub and new to Codex, but this was a great opportunity. Once I had those files set up and the structure all ready to go and had it connected to GitHub, then it was just an issue of logging into ChatGPT, going to Codex, and telling it what I wanted it to do, and it would actually write the code in GitHub, and then I could pull the code down from GitHub onto my little robot, and that's how I did code updates. So giving prompts to ChatGPT, it does all the coding, and then I just pull down all those updates and restart the device, and it was ready to go. Let me show you how that works in reality. So this is my crawler. You might recognize those tank treads from Amazon, and kind of rough. It's just a prototype right here, but it's powered by a Raspberry Pi computer that you can see on top. It's got the Milwaukee drill battery. There's some other components hidden inside here to help protect them. So let's see how this thing works. So here's our crawler sitting on the floor. We connect into the control interface for it, and then we can go ahead and start the cameras. As you can see, we're seeing the front camera on the crawler, and you can see the back camera in the rear view here in the top right corner. It's driven using tank tread controls, and so if we just touch them with my fingers, as we control those, it starts to turn. Now we can see it. Maybe we back up a little bit. You can see the hook on the back there for pulling cables. So one of the features I added is I thought maybe these tank treads might be a little tricky to drive with. So let's go ahead and let's give it a joystick in the middle. And maybe we use this joystick to drive it around. And so there's the basic functionality of how it works. It's driven through this web interface, and then it can It displays back the video, the rear view, and so there's our basic how-to. So now let's make a change using ChatGPT Codex to actually code the change for us in this system. So we're going to come over here, going to go to ChatGPT, and we'll go to Codex. And in Codex, we can see that it's set up for this GitHub repository, and we're just going to give it simple instructions. The rear view was off on the top right. We want to move that to the top center. So we're going to tell GPT, can you move the rear view camera so that it is centered in the top of the screen? And then we tell it to go. And so it'll create a task down here. All right, so we fast forwarded a little bit. Now we're here. You can see here's our task it created at the bottom. It's got 2 lines it added and 1 line that it deleted. So we're going to go ahead and let's take a look at what those specific changes are. So we click on that. It's going to load up the change. And here we can see over on the right, this is the file it pulled from GitHub. We can see the 2 green lines are lines that it added, and the red line is a line that it deleted. So these are the actual changes it made in GitHub. So we can see this is how it centered the rear view camera. Now we're going to go and we're going to click to create a pull request in GitHub. This means create a new version in GitHub that we could pull down. We can compare it with previous versions, and so it thinks for just a minute. This is a great way to track these changes as we go step by step through creating this. It takes it just a second to finish this up, and now it's done. So we're going to go ahead and click view the pull request here, and that will take us out of ChatGPT, and now we're in GitHub. If you're familiar with this, this is a pull request. This is a change we've made, and so for the sake of this demo, I'm going to come here and I'm going to say go ahead and merge this. So we're going to merge the changes into the actual code we're keeping in GitHub so that it's just really easy for us to pull down. So with that done, switch over here. Now this is actually logging into the crawler itself. We're going to change over to our file, our directory for the files, and here you can see all the files, and we're just going to pull down the changes from Git. We can see here, it pulled down the changes. It got 3 changes, 2 additions, and 1 subtraction, which if we switch back over here, let's go back to our codex, and there's the 1 subtraction, 2 additions, and now we're good. So the code's been pulled in, so we're just going to go ahead and reboot the crawler, and that's it for upgrading it. Now let's log into the interface and see how it actually changed. Okay, so if we pull up our interface and log back into the crawler itself, now when we say start cameras, you can see it took our changes, and this rear view camera, which used to be over here in the top right, has now moved to the top left. And so we've got that view fixed. So there you have it. There's my workflow for developing without writing any code, how I can use ChatGPT to make versions and to update code that I can then just pull down and restart my device, and the code updates are done like that. That's an easy way to do programming without actually knowing how to do programming, and it's a powerful use of ChatGPT and ChatGPT Codex.